Hello there. Welcome back to the Senate Podcast. I'm your host, Caleb Johnston, and this is episode number 26, and I'm joined by Tony, the Force may be with you, Quinn. How's that one?
The Force may be with me. I mean, I hope so, but you know.
It might be with you. It might not be. So, it has been... It's been about a month, actually, it might have been a month exactly, almost, since we've done our last retrospective. And today's episode, of course, from the title, Empire Strikes Back, the retrospective. Our last retrospective was episode 4, A New Hope. But it's the summer, we had vacations, a lot of movie and game news. So we just had some things going on, but I am extremely excited to be back. So how have you been the last month with these, vacations and it's summertime, all this news coming out, bunch of movies have dropped. I mean, this is a crazy time of year. So, how have you been lately?
I've been pretty good. I went to the Goggle Works in the break, saw 2 indie movies, and then
Nice.
I saw Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1. I want to see, there are a few other things like Insidious Chapter 3 recently came out, which is technically Chapter 5 because there's 2 prequels, so that's interesting. Yeah, I've just been enjoying, the break, having less of a load, but I'm happy to get back in the swing of things.
I couldn't say it any better. I went on vacation, and coming back from vacation, you almost need another vacation. So I had like a 10-day vacation, which was long, and then I needed a week after I got back just to reacclimate, go back to work. I had off today. I went to the gym twice. I'm beat. I ate so far. I've had 3 meals today. Been in the gym for like 3 hours total. It's been a pretty great day. So now it's gonna get even better. Actually, I had a great day. Before we started the podcast, I went to this kind of like thrift shop place, and what we're gonna do, we're gonna show off our shirts. We both have some great shirts on right now. One is very accurate to the material today, and one is just not. I'll put it that way. So what do you have? You're wearing something.
Empire Strikes Back. I don't remember where I got this, but look, you got the freaking bounty hunters, Boba Fett. I don't remember their names, but they're cool freaking stormtrooper, Vader with red eyes.
88.
And then Vader. Right there we got our heroes, our gang, and then Empire Strikes Back logo. Sick as hell. I love this thing. Yeah, that abomination. It's an Ewok. That's probably like
Ewoks.
Is that the chief of the Ewoks?
Wait, keep talking. I'm gonna find out that guy's name.
Yeah, I'm not. Here's a little teaser for our Return of the Jedi retrospective episode. I hate the Ewoks, and I want them all to die in the worst way possible. So
it might have been. Wait, no, I don't know. No, that guy, that chief is ugly. Chief Chirpa. We're gonna just say this is Chief Chirpa. How's that?
I actually don't even remember what he looks like. Oh God.
Yeah. He looks bad. That's bad. Okay, so I got the Ewok shirt because it's obviously from the better movie, and you have the movie that is we're covering today. So, with all that being said, 5 minutes in almost, you ready to talk about the 5th episode?
Yeah. I don't know how you could think this is worse than Return of the Jedi, but
well, I'm glad you said that, because I think you should kind of take the reins on this episode a little bit, just because you enjoy this episode, or you have this episode kind of placed higher in your, among your rankings than I do. So, not that I don't like the movie. I love the movie, but you're into this episode more, so I think you should kind of just take the lead here. And I want to do that on episodes where you're more positive than I am on the content or the source material and what we're covering. So we did that once before with the mental health episode, and we're going to do it again with the sequel trilogy and possibly some other stuff we're doing. So I could go on about my thoughts, but I want to start it on a positive note. So if you want to take it away and give me your overall thoughts on the movie before we dive into any specifics.
Yeah, my overall thoughts. I mean, a lot of people, I should say, put this as like the best Star Wars film.
Yeah.
Like, it's a cliche, and it's not my favorite. It's not my favorite. It's probably maybe third for me personally. But I still think this is great, and I hadn't seen it in a while. And the one thing that I noticed, which we'll talk about later, is that, like, look, we both love George Lucas. He's a great storyteller, not the best writer, not the best filmmaker. A New Hope is shot in a pretty elementary way. Like, it's just a lot of shot, reverse shot. There's not a lot of visual flair happening, but this movie looks like a film. Like, the lighting, the shot composition, the editing, even all that stuff, is like really cinematic, and that's probably largely in part due to director Irvin Kershner,
Yeah.
who, um, I'm not gonna lie, the only other movie I've heard of from him is RoboCop 2. But he's made like a lot of higher caliber stuff, I guess you could say, in a sense. Um, and yeah, I really love what he brought to the movie. He brought a lot of like depth and drama, and um, Return of the Jedi and this feel completely different. Whereas this and A New Hope feel kind of different, but not so much. So it's really interesting to see, the variance in quality in some ways.
Yeah, I wanted to talk about that because it's interesting that the original trilogy had different directors. I don't think a lot of people realize that, but it's kind of easy to tell because a lot of those three movies feel in a lot of ways very different from one another. So overall thoughts on Empire is it's very different, like you said, than A New Hope. A New Hope felt I personally I love the directing of A New Hope. It feels chaotic and it feels indie in a sense. And that's what I don't like about Empire. It feels more dramatic in a way. So what do you think about specifically how Irvin Kershner, if that's how I pronounce it? I've realized I've never really said his name out loud like that before. How do you feel about his directing in the movie, and how Empire is obviously the darkest of the original trilogy, and people still refer to dark sequels as, oh, this is the Empire of this
Yeah.
trilogy. You know what I mean? So
Yeah, that's
that
become
that
kind of
whole
like a meme at this point.
yeah, that whole shtick. How did that? How do you view that with this movie?
I mean, I think some of the stuff he did in this movie is some of my favorite iconography. You got Luke and Yoda training on Dagobah, and just like how like shadowy and ominous it is. You got that cave that's filled with the dark side, and that whole vibe. You got the Battle of Hoth, which is like one of the most iconic Star Wars landscapes, like this snowy planet, all the characters are wearing parka jackets, you got the Tauntauns. And then, the fight with Luke and Darth Vader, where it's like all like, shadowy and foggy, and then the only light is from their lightsabers and stuff like that. Like, there's so much, like, in my opinion, like, when I think of A New Hope, like, shots, I think of like Mos Eisley Cantina, uh Luke and Leia, swinging across that gap in the Death Star. There are things here and there, but like when I look at Empire, like it's just like, in my opinion, a much more beautiful movie to look at. Like you could just like look at like stills from it, and it's like
Yeah,
looking
it
at
definitely is.
paintings in a museum. And I feel that way about Return of the Jedi too, a little bit less, even though I'm not a huge fan of that movie. But like like there are still shots in that movie. So in my opinion, the quality in some ways kind of went up, and then in other ways went down, and then in some ways kind of went like this. So
Yeah, I agree with you, and my kind of take on that is, I think it is more dramatic, and I like that about it. And like you said, the ending fight, obviously, we're gonna get to that. It's incredible, one of the best fights in the entire saga, for sure. But the movie is very dramatic, and I actually think the movie starts off pretty weak with Hoth. I think it's really cool. I mean, seeing the parkas and the snow planet and all that, and obviously the iconic, him taking down the AT-AT and whatnot. But
yeah, I can.
it's
I'm
go
kind of
ahead.
glad you said that. Yeah,
Yeah.
because that leads me into I finally get to. I kind of forgot to mention it in the A New Hope episode, but my hot take about Han Solo. Uh, Everybody, man, for like before I saw the original trilogy, I would hear people be like, Han Solo is so cool. Han Solo is so this and so that. Han Solo, you know what Han Solo is? He's a guy who is street smart, right? But he's not as clever, he's not as methodical, and he's not as calm, composed, and badass as he leads people to think he is, in my opinion. Like he's a fun character. He feels relatable because usually like he's just really sick of the nonsense that's happening around him. But and that the other thing the other thing I don't like is his romance with Princess Leia. Now,
So stop. I wanna do a whole section on that.
Okay.
So, because I agree with you. So let's the movie. I think it gets better as it goes, which is a good thing. I'm not saying the beginning is bad. It's just I think the movie does get better as it progresses. So from the beginning, we have the crawl, and then bang, Hoth, and it's very. I like the way he directs this. I like the way that it is portrayed. You can tell that there's a different scale than A New Hope.
Yeah.
So they won at the end of A New Hope. Quotations. They destroyed the Death Star, but obviously the Empire's still out there. So now
And
the
they're
rebels
pissed.
had to go. Yeah, they're mad. They want their revenge.
They're following them, tracking them down, which is
They're
like
trying to strike back.
I like the like it's a kind of a revenge story in a way, but it's
Yeah.
like I kind of love the idea that the Empire is so petty that instead of just rebuilding their arsenals and just like like waiting for them to possibly strike again or whatever, they're just like, we need to track them down and just beat them because they beat us, and we're not going to stand for that. Like it's a little funny, but like I think it's a pretty good like you look at like governments and systems in the real world, and they can be pretty petty sometimes. Like
Yeah.
it seems like they kind of do things just because they have the power to do it, and they want to feel big and bad. So I mean, I don't know. It's not too ridiculous in my opinion.
I actually really like the I really like how the Empire is portrayed in the beginning of the movie, where you're talking about you can see the inner workings of the Resistance and the Empire.
Yeah.
You can kind of see the bickering. You can see them talking. You know what I mean? But the rebels. You know what I mean? The behind the scenes. I like that. What I don't like about Hoth was really the snowstorm and him getting hurt and all that. It's okay. It's good, but it really
the
doesn't
Battle
pick
of Hoth
up.
is really stupid. Like conceptually, it's dumb. Like the Empire
Yes.
built these things that are like really big horses
And
that
they land
walk at
miles
like
away.
1 mile per hour. when they could have just flew to where their base is, landed right there, and just bombed the hell out of it. Like, okay,
Yeah,
like it was created purely for spectacle, but I don't think it had any logic behind it.
and the spectacle was cool. And what I will say is I don't know. I tried to look it up real quick. I want to say it was an A-wing that was they used to take down the AT-ATs. That whole spectacle was really cool. However, the the interactions between the three main characters that aren't the droids, I hate it throughout this first act.
Real, I mean, yeah, I wouldn't say I hated it, but yeah,
I'm being I'm
kinda,
being very
yeah,
hyperbolic with that,
yeah,
but
yeah. It's not. I
it's
mean,
not.
I think
Eh.
like the only character moment I like, and it's not something I really noticed before, but I noticed it recently when I was rewatching. I like Han in A New Hope. He was just gonna leave them behind because he had to pay off his debts and stuff, and he was looking out for himself. And then he chose to come back and save Luke. And then it was kind of like, I do care, but I'm not gonna tell you directly that I care. So don't get too choked up about it. And then he's been helping them out for a little while here, but he's like still like, I helped you out, but I still gotta go. And Leia's mad about it. And then as soon he's ready to go, Chewie's fixing the Falcon. And then as soon as somebody says Luke went out on patrol to go check something out, he didn't come back. Han immediately shifts gears and he's like, I need to go find him. I don't care if I die. Like that's like the one character beat in this opening that I was like, I really like that.
Those are the moments in this movie that stand out. I think I like I said, I don't really like all the character interactions, but this movie was a big success for a reason. And there are parts like that you're right. The characterization, everything about it, great. Another one that I actually want to point out at the beginning of the movie, I think a lot of people look over this. This part is amazing. And if you blink, you kind of miss it. It's when Ben appears to Luke in the snow. That was so cool because we have never really seen anything like that before this point. You know what I mean? And it was very
I love how,
ominous.
Like, Ben doesn't explain, like, Luke's not like,
yes.
Ben, how are you appearing before me? And then Ben's like, oh, well, when a Jedi died. No, it's just like a thing, like it's just a part of the universe, and there's no need to talk about it because why would we,
Yeah, and I don't know if this is common knowledge, but, Mark Hamill, he got into an accident, I believe it was a car accident, and scarred his face. That's why.
Yeah, when so he had to wear like makeup or something.
Yeah, until that point where he was in the cave and the monster hit him in the face, and that's how they kind of show his scar on camera. He got it from the beast that was in the cave. It was cool when he used the Force to grab the lightsaber and all that, and then he goes obviously out, and then in the snowstorm, Obi-Wan appears, tells him to go to the Dagobah system. So that's a cool interaction because a lot of people don't talk about that. We later see Force Ghosts, but this was so quick and ominous. And when you're watching it, if you've never seen the movie before, you're watching it like, whoa, what was that? I thought he was.
Did you know originally?
Gone.
Now I don't know. Maybe you would know because you saw the documentary about the original trilogy. But I've heard a lot that in original drafts of this movie and A New Hope, by extension, Darth Vader wasn't originally Luke's father. So when Obi-Wan appears to him, that was actually supposed to be his dad appearing to him.
I actually don't know. I don't
know. That would have been cool. Fact check me. Look it up yourself instead of just taking my word for it. But I've heard that, and I think I've read it in a few places.
I might like that better. That's pretty cool. Anyways, I do know what I do know. Hold up. What I do know is in A New Hope, originally the outline for the entire Star Wars story, Obi-Wan did not die in A New Hope.
Really?
But the movie needed some kind of what do you want to call it, impact like that.
Huh.
So he decided to kill Obi-Wan and bring him back as a Force ghost, but he still needed a mentor figure. So he's like, why don't we go to Obi-Wan's mentor and he said it had to be somebody that was even more mysterious, even more so that wizard character, character archetype. So he thought of Yoda, and Yoda. George says that he does not know what his species name is. He doesn't know where he comes from. All of that.
Are you serious?
Yeah, I like that. He just wanted to make Yoda the most random, mysterious character ever.
I think originally Yoda was like tall.
Maybe.
I think I heard that or something.
I kind of I've watched the documentaries and stuff. I just kind of stopped looking into the backstory of Empire because it's not my favorite. But
that's fine.
Yoda's a cool character. I don't like us trying to go back and explore. Oh, this is his species. This is where he comes from. Yaddle, that's all right. We'll let Yaddle slide. Voiced by Bryce Dallas Howard.
I'm sure with
Grogu, we'll let it slide.
I'm sure with Grogu in the Disney Plus shows, they'll finally
they're gonna explore it,
establish that, which might be cool. That might be cool.
I think if you're going through it with Grogu, yes, but leave Yoda mysterious. Let Yoda be his own thing, because what's going to happen is eventually they're going to go back to the Old Republic, or the High Republic, sorry, and they're going to show Yoda younger and go through all that. Anyways, in this movie, he's meant to be mysterious. And when I love it when he gets to Dagobah and he's like, I'm here looking for a Grand Master Yoda. And he's like, oh, you're looking for Yoda.
Yeah, he's pretending to just be this annoying random Actually, creature. I want to talk about Dagobah real quick.
So we done with Hoth? We good with Hoth?
Yeah, I don't think there's that much to say. Like,
what I will say real quick is the one droid, the one that's like, what's it called? Sorry, it's been a few weeks. I
don't even know if I remember.
Oh my goodness, the droid that finds them in the beginning.
Oh yeah,
Han shoots. I love that droid. I love it seeing it in the games. That's a cool droid because it looks kind of small, but it's actually huge. That droid is really cool.
Something like that was in Solo, wasn't it? You remember when
probably
the ladies on the bridge and then like all those security droids like fly around?
Possibly. I
think that might be similar. Yeah.
Liberate the droids. Yeah. But I think what's cool is the vehicles. They're obviously introducing new vehicles. So why wasn't the X-wing used to take down the AT-ATs? Well, they got to sell toys. So they're
of course.
You know what I mean? So they got to introduce new stuff. So it was cool seeing new droids, new ships, all this cool stuff. Like you said, giant spectacle. I actually did not like the interactions between Han and Leia and Luke, really. I thought it was very weird at the base. It was, I think.
Actually, I forgot that this happens at Hoth. We might save some of this for later.
Yeah.
But do you remember
before
that?
We move on.
But that scene where Leia's mad at Han because, he's being an asshole because, he's Han. He doesn't really know how to be a gentleman. And then she kisses Luke to make him jealous. Remember that. Remember that scene. Remember it. Tattoo it on your mind, because we're going to talk about that in the next episode, and I'm going to lose my mind.
We'll talk about that more in the next episode. But honestly, I feel like that was out of character for Leia anyways, regardless of the connection that we'll come to, find out. But I just thought it was out of character. It was so weird. And then what made it even worse.
She kind of does it again close to the end of the movie. And it's like, so like Han, actually I'll save that because I have like a small rant for
that's fine.
The end.
So, yeah, that interaction was weird. Of course, it was great to see Chewbacca and 3PO back, and R2, all of them. Great spectacle. I think that's what we can get out of Act 1. It was a great spectacle. This is where I started to kind of go downhill in the movie. I was like, man, these are not the characters I feel like we left off with when they were getting at the ceremony and she gave them the awards. I was like, this is kind of weird, but it was cool to see. Now we get to the second act, or at least in our headcanon, the middle part of the movie, where the heroes split up. You got Luke going to Dagobah to find Yoda to train him, and then the rebels, or in the Falcon, we got Leia and Han. They go out to escape the Empire which was really cool. Honestly, this part was cool, by attaching themselves to the destroyer to hide. I thought that was awesome. So
yeah. So
all right,
in A New Hope, I don't remember if I mentioned this, but Tatooine, they just filmed in a desert. But
yeah,
every time, like especially watching watching that movie for the first time, and even watching it now, like every time I've rewatched it since, my mind forgets that it's just a desert because
yeah,
of the practical effects of the like. I feel like that's just a planet. That's a desert planet. Like I don't see models. I see actual vehicles. And Jawas.
yeah.
And then in this movie, Dagobah is obviously just a swamp. I can't watch this movie and just see a swamp with probably like a few prop trees and a green like it.
Yeah.
See, like if this doesn't work, if Yoda doesn't work, everybody would be taken out of the movie. It would be terrible, but because of the puppetry, the filmmaking, the cinematography, the lighting, the writing, Frank Oz's legendary performance, somehow I watched this whole segment of the movie and I don't see a green puppet being secretly puppeteered by somebody underneath a production stage in a
Yes.
swamp. I see a freaking green alien talking to a character and he's a real being every single time. It blows my mind. I don't know how they did it.
And Yoda does some crazy things that really should take you out of the movie, but they pull it off.
Yeah.
Which is it's kind of crazy how they do it. But I think it's cool because R2 is also in Dagobah with Luke. So Mark Hamill has to act alongside a little guy and a droid, and then somebody under a stage with a puppet that is a little green alien.
Yeah.
That's supposed to be a Grandmaster Jedi. So but you believe all of it. You know what I mean? It's really cool seeing the documentary how they made Dagobah come to life. It was
I gotta watch that
it's
documentary.
awesome. It looks so good, and I wish I could find the tweet, but I saw somebody tweet out yesterday that they were like, you. I guess people they said something along the lines of people think that the original trilogy was a huge success because of the story and the writing and the whatever, but they're like it was probably more. They said it was more so the technical feats that
Oh
they
yeah.
accomplished. And I'm like, that's true because nowadays you could see something like Avatar Way of Water, which is extremely advanced, filmmaking with all these, digital like crazy. And they're using all these type of, same thing with Endgame and all the Avengers. Like they're using such advanced technology to tell stories, but it's not as impressive nowadays. It's you know what I mean? Back then,
Yeah.
this really took you to a galaxy far, far away. And even today, when you're watching it, you can obviously tell some things are, dated, but other things, it's like, man, this is insane what they accomplished for its time and still to this day. So you're right. Dagobah is incredible. I think it's one of the best locations in
Oh
all of
yeah,
Star Wars,
definitely.
personally.
So
You're right. It's just a swamp, but
I don't know how to segue into this, but I want to get your opinion because I don't think it's been explained elsewhere, at least that I know. When Luke, he's just like chilling with R2D2 and he's eating some of his
I
food
love
or
that.
whatever, and
Yeah,
then he just
I
looks
love it.
around and he says, "There's something familiar about this place."
We
What do
could
you
talk.
think
Yeah, let's
that
talk about it.
means? Because that was never. I saw this YouTuber. He did like how he would have made the prequels, and then in Revenge of the Sith, when Padme has Luke and Leia, she has Luke and Dagobah to tie back to that line when he says there's something familiar about this place because he
That's
was
interesting.
like
Yeah.
because like
Yeah.
it's just like a throwaway line that is never circled back to. So I'm wondering like what you think that could possibly mean, if anything.
Well, what's funny is I think there are okay. Everybody calm down. There are a lot of stories between that happen between 4 and 5. There are comics, there are books, all of this stuff. Up until this point, just in the movies, we know that Luke has never left Tatooine. We see him go to space in Yavin 4, and then we see him go to Hoth. None of those are swamps. So
Yeah.
up until this point, when he says that, in our minds, it's not like, oh, maybe he went to visit the swamp off screen and we never saw it. That's not a thing. So what I think was he was talking more about the feeling, and it was the feeling of the Force. Dagobah, I'm not. See, this is extended too. I think Yoda chose to go there because of some kind of Force connection.
I think I heard that somewhere. I don't know. It might have been from
Yeah,
you.
I'm just saying that's something that could be out there, but in the movie, it doesn't say that. But I feel like when he says that, he's referring to the Force when he felt the Force at the end of A New Hope in his X-wing, when he felt the Force for the first time in the Falcon, when he was using the he had his face covered and was blocking the bullets, the lightsabers bolts. I can't talk. My goodness. And the first time he was on Tatooine and Ben came and saved him, like those little times where the Force theme, the music, the Force theme comes in, and you know that this is where kind of he's tapping into the Force, or the Force is at play, and we can kind of see it. It's in the background, but we know it's there. This is one of those moments. This is a very almost ethereal place for these characters. I think
I never thought about it that way.
For it.
Yeah, and that's the only thing I could think of, because what else could that possibly mean?
It gets reinforced, that idea, after the training when we get to the cave, because I believe that cave is another reason Yoda went there, because it shows you something, blah blah blah. But anyways, obviously he has this crazy, Force experience, premonition thing in this cave. So obviously the Force is strong in this place.
I wonder, this might be a reach, but I wonder if Anakin ever went to Dagobah, because that could have been him feeling like maybe
a family
his
connection.
Dad's, or something.
Yeah. Maybe he felt that through Yoda.
Oh, maybe.
Maybe the same kind of presence he felt with Obi-Wan, he felt with Yoda, because Yoda trained Obi-Wan. I don't know.
Oh yeah, man, yeah. Yeah,
there's some weird Force stuff going on behind the scenes.
I would just love to meet George Lucas and just ask him what he intended with that line.
What did this throwaway line mean, George?
What does it mean? Sir, can you please get out of my house?
Security. All right. Where are we going?
Okay, so he meets Yoda, and then Yoda's pretending to be this annoying, creature. He's like grabbing Luke stuff and just like throwing it. He's just like rooting around in his pack looking for food, and he's trying to test Luke's patience. And we know that Luke is one of the most impatient people in film history, so he just immediately fails. He starts yelling. He's like, "Oh my God, will you leave me alone? Stop touching that. Oh my God, you're so annoying." And then when he says, "I know Master Yoda, I could take you to him," Luke just whines the whole time, like, what are we doing here? We're wasting our time. And dude, speaking of the puppetry, the filmmaking, Frank Oz's performance,
definitely.
I don't know how the hell they did this. That moment where Yoda drops the act and then he reveals himself to be Yoda. He has a change in physicality, and I don't know how they did that with a puppet.
Insane.
I don't know.
It's okay. I'm glad we can agree on Dagobah, because that is, aside from the visuals and kind of the intensity of the final fight, specifically, I think Dagobah is incredible.
And then he's like talking to Obi-Wan. He's like, he's impatient. I can't train him, yada yada. And then Luke's immediately like, "Oh no, wait, no. I'm sorry. I could do Luke. Like, the thing I love about Luke is that he's impulsive, impatient, naive, but he's still willing to admit his faults and like to know when he's out of his element and stuff like that.
Yeah, great character. I love how Yoda's like, he's too impatient. He's too old to train it. He's too old.
Yeah, he's just like making excuses because he doesn't want to train him, and then Obi-Wan says something else, and then Yoda's like, like, even like how they like make Yoda's face make certain expressions and stuff. It looks realistic. Like, exactly how he's feeling.
The training sequence was awesome. Seeing him on his back and him just flipping around.
See,
Never really,
I'm sorry. What were you saying?
never really cared for it. Actually, I mean, it's cool, but it was, you know,
It doesn't like I. This is one of my problems with the original trilogy. Is that like I'm gonna here's a teaser for just a fraction of one of my rants when we talk about the sequel trilogy. People call Rey Mary Sue. They're like, "Oh, Rey didn't train. She didn't do this. She didn't do that, and she's strong with the Force." Bro, Luke in the first movie somehow could use the Force to make a 1 in a million shot to blow up the Death Star, and the only training he had was he blocked a few laser beams with a lightsaber
yeah,
for like 5 minutes. And then in this movie, he stands toe to toe with Darth Vader. The only training he had was he ran around with Yoda and did some front flips, swung on some vines, and lifted some stuff with the Force, and then failed to do it all the way. And I don't know, but like it's kind of like a fun Rocky style montage, and like Yoda's like talking to him about the Force. Like Luke's like, is the dark side stronger? Yeah, and then Yoda's immediately like, no, it's more. I forget exactly what he says. Like it's like more this or that, but it's not stronger. And then like there's some great stuff, but it's like that was all the training. Make it like, bro, he's not like he's
no,
doing
this
some
is
cardio and
he's doing his cardio. It's leg day.
yeah, I don't know.
Here's where I'll jump in with my little take now. Piggyback off what you're doing. That idea is forgivable if the movie sets that precedent. If you're watching a Star Wars movie or any movie, and the movie it's fun, it is absurd. I guess it's more fantastical. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. You can forgive some of the crazy things that happen.
Oh yeah, exactly.
But when
yeah.
you take a movie and try to ground it and make it more serious, more dramatic, more real, you can't start, to forgive those same things like that. And this movie suffers from that. And that's why it's not up there in one of my favorites. It's actually, out of the original six, it's my least favorite.
Oh wow.
So I would put, yeah. Anyways,
yeah.
everyone just left.
I think like I felt a great disturbance in the Force.
Yeah.
As if a few YouTubers clicked off of the podcast in anger. No,
So not only is Star Wars is supposed to be fun. I get it. This is a dark movie. Revenge of the Sith is arguably more dark. However, Star Wars is not only supposed to be fun, it's supposed to be unrealistic. And I think Revenge of the Sith is very dark and serious, but it's also very unrealistic. So the craziness is justified. With this, it is dark and serious, and I think some of the craziness is still it's not being justified in this movie alone. You're just kind of still having to suspend your disbelief, and they're trying to ground it more.
Yeah.
It was cool seeing some grounded things like a Bacta tank, because that's something that is almost realistic. Stuff like that's cool. But when you get to the end and you're seeing him fight Vader, it is extremely absurd. And like you said, he only had this training.
Yeah.
Now we can forgive that because it's Star Wars and it's absurd. But I see what you're saying with your Mary Sue comparison.
And then like
we forgive it for this, we should forgive it for the sequels.
Exactly. Yeah. And Anakin was way more of a Mary Sue than Rey ever was. But like one of the like what you were saying about like them trying to ground the movie too much. I've a few years like a long time ago when I saw these for the first time, I heard on YouTube somebody say like it's kind of a plot hole how like it seems like the Han and Leia stuff takes place over like a few days or whatever, but then it seems like the Luke and Yoda stuff is essentially like one day, kind of like so like the passage of time doesn't feel consistent for both sides of the story.
Wouldn't that be cool if actually like something like Interstellar happens where the time moves different in Dagobah?
I mean, I feel like I
feel like I've heard people
that's
say
the thing that I always thought too. Like, oh well, he's probably like really far away. Maybe time like it doesn't ruin the movie for me, but it's something that I've always had on my mind. a little bit.
You want me to absolutely just make this episode even worse right now?
Sure, go ahead.
Star Wars should, I'm not saying they should, but if they could, they should kind of go the Star Trek route and incorporate kind of science fiction ideas like not time travel, but more so like I guess time displacement.
I think they kind of,
like I was saying with Interstellar.
I think I heard that they did something like that in Clone Wars, where there's a dimension where like you can access any time period or something like that.
Yeah, you're talking about in Rebels, the world between worlds, which very well could be in Ahsoka.
I know nothing about that. I just heard
there was also a time displacement theory for Tatooine because how it looks. They're like, oh, Obi-Wan looks like this, but in like 5 years he's supposed to look 50 years older. And they're saying that the time on Tatooine ages you more. I'm like, okay, this isn't explained in Star Wars, but I really just want everybody to hate me after this episode. So I've been watching Star Trek Strange New Worlds. Let me tell you, some of the greatest storytelling in science fiction ever. I absolutely love it. Okay, plug. Back to
so let's get back. So Luke and Yoda, they're training to fight Ivan Drago for the championship. And then, there's a moment where they stop and Yoda's like, okay, that's enough training for today, whatever. I think I could be remembering it wrong. And then Luke feels a presence and then he's like, what's that? And then Yoda's like, oh, there's a cave here that's strong with the dark side. You should go check it out, bro. And then Luke's like, okay. And then, what's in there? And then Yoda's like, only what you bring with you, which is a banger freaking quote. Because I feel like that's a great metaphor for life. Like, like when you're in a dark place in your life, to an extent, what is in there with you is what you bring in there with you.
It's the baggage.
So I want to get your take on this because I've heard a few different ways over the long years that I've, processed these movies. So Luke goes in the cave and then he sees a mirage of Darth Vader. And then, they have a brief duel. He cuts his head off and then it's just Vader's helmet. And then it blows up and then it's Luke's face. So what I've heard and what I kind of lean towards is that was Luke getting a premonition that if he doesn't be careful, he could, fall to the dark side and end up like his dad. So what do you, what's your interpretation of that shot?
It's the same. In Return of the Jedi, we see how Vader says that. What does Vader say? That he's gonna turn you. He'll be your master. Whatever. Anyways, the Emperor is not trying to kill Luke. He's trying to turn him into his next apprentice. So I think
I never thought of. I never thought that that would literally mean that not just oh, Luke, don't be be careful so you don't wind up like your dad, but the Emperor literally wanted him to be his dad.
to be Darth Vader. So I think that's what it is. But in that moment, we didn't know that. So when he fights Darth Vader, it's like, is he going to be consumed by the dark side, like you said? But then once we get to Return of the Jedi, we kind of get more context where he literally could be the Emperor's apprentice, like how Darth Vader is.
That just shows how insidious Palpatine is. Is that
I love him.
He was basically
greatest villain ever.
Vader, you've served me well, but you're yesterday's news. You're an old dog. Yep. Your son here is young. He's full of endless possibilities. So I'm just going to take you. I'm going to just lock you away over here. Bye-bye. Have fun. I'll send you your residual checks. # pay your writers. And now, Luke, you'll be my new apprentice and, we can do great things together. He's just he doesn't care about Anakin. And we even saw that as far back as the original trilogy. He does not care about anybody.
He's a savage.
Yeah.
So that's how I interpret that. Dagobah, amazing. Luke, Luke runs off, and Yoda tells him, he's like, if you leave now, you're gonna die to Vader. Blah blah blah. He does it anyways because his friends are in trouble.
Another thing that I never noticed that I want to get your take on. So when Yoda was like talking to Luke, he's like, "You could save them, if you leave now, but you'll destroy everything they fought for." What do you think he meant by that? Because the only thing I could think of that would actually make sense within the context of the movie is that, like, they're fighting essentially to reunite with Luke. So, like, if Luke runs off, he could be vulnerable to, like, being tempted to the dark side or maybe even killed or whatever. So he would, like, by ruin what they fought for, Yoda's talking about himself, like, literally. It's the only thing I could think of, but do you have, like, any ideas about what that could mean?
I think he was saying you have two options. If you leave now, one of two things are going to happen. You're going to save them, or everything that they fought for will mean nothing. And at that point in time, that's where I think the greatness of Luke comes out, and we see it. He believed in himself so much that he said, if there is a chance that I can save them, I have to take that. And I believe in myself so much that I'm not going to fail and jeopardize everything. Because a lot of, like, let's say a lot of rational people, and maybe even this would have been a rational way of thinking that Yoda would have taught to the previous Jedi Order, that, hey, there is this chance you don't do it, blah, blah, blah. Luke had a different mindset because he didn't grow up in the Jedi Order. He needed to save his friends, and that's what he was going to do. And who knows, you might have used the Force to actually do that, and he would have never had that opportunity. And honestly, they would have died without him doing it. So I think Yoda was trying to be a rational teacher in that moment, and Luke kind of followed in his father's footsteps and said, hey, if I can save my friends, I'm going to do it. And that's what he did.
Essentially, Luke was like, with great power comes great responsibility, bro.
When he was on Dagobah, he got bit by a spider. So that's how I take it.
That would actually be an interesting story, like a fanfic. So then, yeah, and then, so Luke ends up leaving, and then Yoda and Obi-Wan's Force Ghost, tell him to use the Force, remember your training, which is a line that makes no sense because Luke really didn't have any training. So is Yoda saying, remember when you ran around and flipped? That'll really save you against freaking Darth Vader. Yeah. Okay, Yoda. Yoda's kind of an idiot. I'm just going to, like, he has moments where he's really stupid, but I mean,
I think Obi-Wan was trying to tell him, don't act on pure emotion and all of that. Remember that there is a way to defeat him. Don't just go in there trying to kill him.
Yeah,
remember that
it's even deeper when you think back to the prequel trilogy and how he saw Anakin with Padme, how, like, whenever Padme was in danger, he, like, when they were on the ship in Attack of the Clones and Padme falls out, and then Anakin's like, we have to go back for her. And then Obi-Wan's like, dude, calm down. You're acting like an idiot, okay? So it's like he's seeing Luke kind of be that same way for the people he cares about. So I could only imagine,
I have an interesting little sidebar here.
Okay.
Who was Luke acting more like in this situation in Empire? Was he acting more like his father or more like his mother? Because Luke was acting like Padme in this. Padme was the gung-ho one out of the two. Think about Attack of the Clones when Obi-Wan was in trouble. Anakin said, no, my duty is to stay here and protect you. I can't go save my friend.
I think Padme rubbed off on Anakin, yes. And then that was what made him kind of become more of a go-getter a little bit.
I think so. Because he was a go-getter in The Phantom Menace, but then he was trained in the Jedi ways.
Yeah.
But then Padme was like, your friend's in trouble. You have to go save him. And if you're not going to go save him, I'm going to go save him, and you're going to protect me while I do
never
it.
thought of that. That's interesting.
So Padme, underrated character, and obviously you can see tons of Padme in Leia. Great segue to the part where Leia and Han are.
Wait, can I bring up one more thing,
out.
just to segue into the Leia and Han?
Yeah, you can.
Okay, so
go ahead.
Like I know, like Yoda just says a lot of stuff that is open to interpretation. So when once Luke flies away, it's just Yoda and Obi-Wan.
Yeah.
Obi-Wan says, that boy is our only hope. And then it starts fading to black. And then Yoda says, no, there is another. Now, with the context of having all three movies, anybody could go, oh, he was talking about Leia. But Obi-Wan either didn't know that or wasn't thinking about her. And then Yoda was like, no, he has a sister. She's also, possibly somebody who could be helpful. But if you remember that, I don't think, just like Darth Vader being Luke's dad, I don't think Leia being, clearly Leia being Luke's sister wasn't an idea until the pre-production of Return of the Jedi, because they kissed twice. And if George did want that to be a thing, then I'm going to blacklist him from people that I admire, because that's just gross. But I'm choosing to believe it wasn't a thought. So, with that in mind, I think, and I want to know what you think, I think Yoda was talking about Anakin when he said, no, there is another. Like, if Luke fails, Anakin could still turn back to the light side, which is what happens. So, what's your interpretation?
I think I don't think he was talking about Anakin.
Oh, okay.
Because essentially, Obi-Wan said he's our only hope. And then Yoda said, no, there is another, basically. And essentially that means if Luke fails in killing Vader and Vader kills Luke. So that's the dilemma they're arguing about right there. He's our only hope of destroying the Empire, destroying Vader. And then Yoda says, no, there's another, in case he dies, in case he doesn't kill Vader and Vader kills him. So if Vader kills Luke, how is Vader going to be redeemed? How is Vader going to still be that hope? Because at this point, Obi-Wan and Yoda they have no hope at all in Vader and Anakin coming back. Anakin's dead to them.
Well,
the only one that could...
I know Obi-Wan said that, but I don't remember. In this movie, did Yoda say, definitively, oh yeah, Darth Vader, he's just because he obviously doesn't talk about him in the context of being Luke's dad at that point, but does he ever say anything that shows that he just thinks he's pure evil?
I'm not sure. I don't think so. I just think it's implied. I think Vader is supposed to be the evil one. I think they were. Here's my theory. I think they were talking about Leia, but I don't think they were talking about Leia being another, hope,
another Skywalker.
Whatever,
you mean?
Because she's related. I think she could have just been another person that could have. You know what I mean?
There's that. We'll talk more about this at the end, but that thing that, in my opinion, shows that was already kind of sensitive to the Force.
Yeah.
So
yeah. So I'm not saying it's great writing. I'm not saying that would have been better. I'm just saying I think that would have made sense because she is a main character and she is already shown to be extremely capable.
Yeah.
Whatever. So let's just say alternate reality. Luke goes and fights Vader. He dies. Leia takes up the mantle. Whatever. That could have been a possibility that they were I think that would have been. And then I think they thought about that and were like, what if she's a sister? Blah blah blah.
Yeah, they
So
probably expanded and landed with that. Yeah, it's like
interesting.
people,
Yeah.
rightfully bash the sequel trilogy for, retconning, but the original trilogy
Yeah.
retcon stuff too. And it kind of
Yeah.
makes watching all the movies feel a little weird because there are things that kind of don't lead to where they seem to be leading originally. Like you're like driving on a highway and then instead of you're like driving straight and then there's like a random brick wall and then there's a lane here. It's like, okay, now I gotta make a left turn. Okay, that's weird. So I mean, Star Wars
They
has always retconned.
it's insane how good of a job they've done. It's in spite of all that, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? So anything we really got to say about the space fight, I don't like it. I think they did it 100% better in Attack of the Clones because they almost mirror it. If you watch them back to back, they use the same maneuvers. It's just flip flopped. I don't really like the
Is
space
that
battle in
where
this. I think it was cool seeing the
C-3PO
bounty
gets like
hunters.
stuck in the exposed wires and he's like, "Help me, I'm stuck," or something like that? Is that the scene? I don't remember. Like it's like I can't stand him, dude. Like I mean, he's still likable just because he's fun to laugh at, but like he has so many stupid moments.
Okay, so stupid moments aside, how did you like seeing the mysterious bounty hunters for the first time? I thought they were cool, but super pointless.
I mean,
Except for Boba.
yeah. I mean,
Boba was all right.
I feel the way about that I feel about the Mos Eisley Cantina because really,
Yeah,
when you
yeah,
think about it, they put in way too much work to have a whole bunch of species be on screen for like maybe 5 seconds tops, but it was to give build the world more, show how big the galaxy is, that this is like a melting pot of all sides of the universe, species from all over. So I like that they created these other bounty hunters that look visually distinct. One of them's a robot, a
yeah.
droid, which is really cool. And like
You're right. It was very much like the
it
cantina.
was
Yeah,
a lot of work just for the sake of enriching the story, and I don't necessarily um
yeah.
think that it's pointless. I get what you're saying though, because it's setting up something
Underused,
cool that they
underutilized.
didn't
Yeah,
actually do anything with. I do like that moment where he's like talking to them. He's like, "Yeah, bring Han Solo back alive," and then he points to Boba. He's like, "No disintegrations," and
yeah,
then
yeah.
Boba's like, "As you wish," So like that little moment right
Little
there
characterization right
just
there. Yeah,
shows you that sometimes he kills the people that he's hired to go apprehend. Maybe that's an accident, or maybe he's just that full of rage that if they annoy him, he's like, "I'm just gonna kill you because I'm still gonna make some money. So bye bye." That's a fun
I
little.
like how it. They didn't say this at all, but kind of like headcanon right here is I like how the Empire is kind of admitting they're not capable of finding them, so they have to,
Yeah.
hire like contractors essentially. Like, hey, we're not capable. We're the Empire, but we're not capable of finding these guys. So we need you all to do it.
Well, the Empire has a lot of incompetent people, as shown by that thing that this movie started, where whenever somebody fails doing something Vader wanted them to, he just
He
kills
kills
them.
them and
He just killed
promotes the next guy.
he chokes him through a screen in a different room, and then I don't remember if it's in this movie or Return of the Jedi, but like he force chokes somebody, and then there's like it like pans to another guy sitting at a terminal, and then he just looks over like,
It was this, yeah.
"Oh shit!"
It was
like,
Empire. Yeah.
here he goes again. He's pissed off. Oh no! I really hate working here. The pay sucks, and I have to deal with this guy. Like,
Yeah, you got it wrong. They showed that was Robot Chicken you're thinking of.
it's like a family. It's like like that stuff is a little ridiculous. It feels kind of like a workplace sitcom a little bit because it's like that guy who's like, so unstable that like if you fail him, he kills you. That's like such a cliche. I think
Yeah.
it might have been a thing before this movie, but I think this movie definitely made that like mainstream. And speaking of sitcom, on one hand, I kind of like the Han and Leia stuff because it feels like a romantic comedy in Star Wars.
No.
But on the other hand, I just don't like their relationship is as deep as the Sahara Desert, a puddle in the Sahara Desert, which is to say there are no puddles in the Sahara Desert, so it doesn't exist.
I
The
think
whole
it
thing
was
is like Han being like, I know you have feelings for me. And then Leia's like, no, you're a scoundrel. And then Han's like, yeah, but you like that I'm a scoundrel. And then Leia's like, I happen to like nice guys. And then Han's like, well, I could be a nice guy, and I just kind of want somebody to kill me. Like, I don't care about their romance. It was great in episode 7. I actually really liked it. But in here, it's like, it's just not like he's acting like he's older than her clearly, but he's acting like a freaking love struck teenager or like a
it
younger man.
it
Like
was
I don't know.
it was done way better at the end of the movie, which we can get into now in the third act. And it was done better when they get to Cloud City and he's introducing her to Lando. And then of course at the end when she's like, I love you. And he's like, I know.
Yeah,
That's perfect character. That's perfect. That is perfect. That's something that their characters would
yeah,
do, and it was done perfect. And then it sets up 6 very nice because honestly, their relationship in 6 is done pretty well.
yeah.
But you're
Speaking
right.
of
Throughout this movie, it just
yeah,
keeps getting better, and it peaks at the end.
yeah. So speaking of Lando, they go to Cloud
Great
City
character.
because Han knows a guy
Yeah,
named Lando Calrissian, and they have
yeah.
nowhere else to go. So they go to it's a place in the clouds. It's like I don't know exactly what it's a mining facility,
City in the
right?
Clouds.
It's like a mining
It's
facility.
it's supposed to be. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. So I love that like Lando, he's a much bigger player in Return of the Jedi, but like, you know, he doesn't have a ton of screen time in this movie, maybe like half an hour tops, maybe. But like he's just so charismatic and like as soon as like he like walks up to Han and stuff and he acts like he's gonna punch him, and then Han's like, and then he like gives him a hug, and he's like, "How
yeah.
you been?" Like you just get that feeling that like they have a history, they've had moments together, and then I love the line that is referenced in Solo. So now I think it feels like a pretty
Yeah.
good callback where he's like, "How you treating my ship?" And then he's like, your ship, and then he's like,
I
hey,
want it fair and
I want
square.
it yeah, because Lando was cheating and then Han stole the cards that he was using to cheat, so he beat him fairly. Like that's just like a fun little thing.
Their relationship's cool, and I like how you're saying they just do it in the movie and they don't sit and explain it
Yeah,
all to
like
you.
Leia's not like,
Yeah.
how do you two know each
How
other?
did that
And then
happen?
Lando's
Let's
like,
take time out
well,
of the
let me
movie
tell
and
you. So I met
show it.
Han.
Yeah.
Like who cares about that? I don't care.
They go into the flashback scene
Yeah.
and it just starts playing, like completely derails the movie. But no, they handle that well. And he doesn't get a lot of screen time. So I like it because you're kind of like, is this guy legit or not? And then he's like, yeah, we got a dinner plan for you.
And then,
Come on
one of the
down.
most iconic lines from Vader, I would be honored if you would join. And then Han, immediately takes his blaster, shoots him, and then Vader's like, bitch, please.
I love how everyone's like, wow, Vader made a really nice dinner for them. And the first thing he does is just try to blast him. But that's cool because then you see that Lando's character is not all good. And it's just like, wow, I can't believe he did that to him.
But then he kind of redeems himself, like shows that,
exactly.
like he's still trying to protect Leia. And then, Vader keeps changing the terms. And then we get the other iconic line, I am altering the deal. Pray that I don't alter it any further.
Yo, Vader, man.
And then,
awesome.
like Lando, like I actually really like him in this movie because like you know, other people, anybody could be like, oh, Lando was an ass. He, sold him out. He ratted him out. But like,
But
what would you
you
have
get the
done? You know what
sense
I mean? Like, would you have been able
you
to
get
look
the
at Darth Vader and say, I'm not going to do what you tell me?
exactly.
No. Hell no.
He didn't have a choice, and he did it because if you don't remember, he did it for the city. He did it for his
Yeah,
people
exactly.
because he said, you know what I mean? And you get the sense of how scared he is of the Empire, just like the rebels are. He just wasn't in in the rebels. He was the whatever of the city, and he was just as scared as the rebels. So you're like, man, I can't believe he sold him out. But then it's like, wow, you got to think about it from his perspective, where he's doing this to survive and for his people to survive. But when he gets an opportunity to change it, he takes it, and he does do it. And he's a great character.
Yeah,
So,
I never really appreciated Lando before, but I really like him now.
yeah.
So then Luke
Great character in
shows up
6.
there, and then Lando tells Han and Leia that like they're looking for some guy named Starkiller, and then they're like Skywalker. So like they're looking for Luke, and then Luke went right to him, and
Star
I
Killer.
love that moment where like he's like walking through the hallway, and then Luke like I think he like cocks his blaster or something, and then Boba Fett's walking, and then he just like
Yeah.
stops and is like he's so like attuned to like listen for threats and stuff. Like that was I kind of wish they would have like had like a fight scene or something like that.
Dude, the small things they do in these movies that they just don't explain. You see it and you're like, oh, that's interesting. It's great directing.
Yeah.
I think that's part of the dramatic, intense directing where he added those little things so you can get like more of a suspense.
Yeah.
Like, oh, are they gonna fight? You know what I mean? Yeah, like you said, Luke shows up,
And then
when
that
when he
leads
shows
us
up,
to
woo,
I don't
best
know if
part.
this is my favorite lightsaber duel in the
Yeah,
entire saga, but it might be. It's just great. Like Luke walks up and like I
it is really
said
good.
earlier, the like lighting's dark and then their lightsabers are just bright and vivid. And then it's cool because at first Vader is just like fighting with one hand. It kind of looks like he's not really taking it seriously. He's like, I don't really need to try against this chump, I'm just gonna mess with him a little bit. He's a wimp
I
anyway.
like when he, I like when he is he's so slow moving, but so powerful and menacing. And I
Yeah.
love how he hides in the shadows, and Luke it has his lightsaber out, and he's like looking around using his lightsaber to like shine, like light up the darkness, and he like can't find Vader. I love
And
it.
then I actually didn't think of this until right now, but you remember when like he like climbs up that thing and then Vader like slashes and then Luke moves and he like slashes that like cable thing that's like blowing smoke and then
Mm-hmm.
Luke like picks it up and like blows the
Yeah.
smoke in Vader's helmet. Well, I feel like that was a callback to when Luke got captured by the Wampa.
Oh,
And then
that's a good point.
because like at the beginning of the movie, he was hanging upside down with an enemy that wanted to kill him, and he was in danger. But now he's in that same situation, and he's like, "I got the upper hand now. I know what to do."
And maybe that just reinforces Obi-Wan's remember your training
Yeah,
too.
yeah.
So I got to watch that.
I kind of like
That's a
the
good
idea
call. Good catch.
of like training, not just being like actual
Yeah,
teaching, but like
your
experience.
experience.
Yeah, I think that's like I feel like that's kind of what separates Luke from the other Jedi is that he didn't get trained in the formal
Yeah.
dogmatic sense, but he experienced a lot of things.
That's why Cal Kestis is so
I think
cool
that's
too.
cool. Yeah. I think that's great.
Yeah. So
So then,
yeah,
so the fight culminates to Vader. I saw a tweet about this moment that I thought was funny, where it's like like Vader was fighting Luke, and like he thought Luke was below him in terms of skill and stuff, and then once he sees that Luke was powerful, he just starts throwing stuff at his son. Like, okay, screw you, I'm gonna throw all this stuff. And then Luke's like swatting away like objects. Like it's a little hokey, but it shows like Vader's how powerful Darth Vader is with the Force. So like he can pick up these really big things and just like throw them like it's nothing.
So did you know literally nobody knew about that, even when they were filming that he was his
That he,
father, and they
yeah,
added it after? Yeah.
David Prowse, the guy who wore the Vader costume, but he didn't do the voice. George Lucas had him say something else, and then James Earl Jones, when he went in to record the voiceover, said, "Yeah." So like Vader, like Luke, like slashes part of Vader's outfit, and then Vader's like, "Okay, I'm not messing around anymore," and he just starts going. He disarms Luke quickly, chops off his hand. Like when
savage
like
move.
like Vader, he likes to mess with his foes, but when he gets serious, boy, look out.
Yeah.
And then, he's like, Obi-Wan never told you what happened to your father. And then he's like, he told me Mark Hamill's performance in this scene is a little ridiculous. He's like, he told me you killed him. Like, it's like, okay, I get it, but it's a little weird. And then he's like, no, I am your father. And then I'm not sure if this is how it was intended to be, but Vader's like, join me and we can rule the galaxy as father and son.
Yeah.
Which is a little sweet that Vader's
That's
evil
cool.
and stuff,
I
but
love
he
that.
just wants to rule the galaxy and spend time with his son. Like, his idea of like spending quality time with his son is having him be his right-hand man being evil. Like, that's
what if he was
cute.
like,
I don't know.
What if he was like, I killed your mother for not joining me. I'll kill you for not joining me as well.
Because
think about it.
That would have been epic.
Because that just reminds me of Revenge of the Sith when he told Padme we can rule the galaxy together. You know what I mean?
Anakin
and then
just
now
wants
in this, he
companionship,
wants his
dude,
son,
and he never gets it.
He just wants a friend.
Every relationship that he has ever been in, there were always strings attached, or he failed to maintain it. It's tragic.
He just got tired, man. He got fed up.
So I'm not sure if Luke was trying to kill himself when he jumped down, but it seemed like, because it kind of seemed like that's what he was thinking, because he's like, I can't do anything else. I don't want my father to, use me as a pawn. So
what I'll say is, I don't think he tapped into the Force and was like, oh, I know I can survive this. I think he was just so mad at that point. He was like, I will literally do anything but join you. So he's like, if I die or if I don't die, he's like, last thing I'm going to do is join you. So I'm jumping. And
it is kind of, I've always thought it was kind of ridiculous that like he just happens to get sucked into this slide tube thing. And then he just like slides down. Like, I always thought that was kind of dumb. I always thought it was like kind of ridiculous that like he just happens to get sucked into this like tube thing. Like, it's just like really convenient.
This is the part.
Like,
it's so weird, because if you look how far he falls too, not him sliding, but when he actually falls, I'm like, he would have died.
Yeah, exactly.
There's just no way. Even for a Jedi, like, he would have snapped your neck.
And then so Han gets frozen in carbonite by Boba Fett because Vader wants to test that to see if he'll be able to put Luke in there and freeze him. So he doesn't care if Han dies or not, which, he's just ruthless, and then Boba's like, he's no good to me dead, which, like, I love that Boba isn't afraid to like step up to Vader and be like, yo, I don't like what you're doing, and you better back off. And like, it seems like Vader kind of respects him in a way. Like, he doesn't, like, he like kind of tries to compromise, because then when Boba says that, he's like, the Empire will pay you if he dies. It's all good, buddy. Don't worry about it. Like, he's kind of never friendly to anybody else, but with Boba Fett, he kind of is a little bit. I think that's an interesting thing.
It's just, his personality is so interesting, and that's one of the reasons it works, is because he's very different than any other villain up to that point. And like you're saying, his characterization and dialogue and acting, all that's great. I think specifically here, the director utilizes Vader very well.
Oh yeah, this
whole
maybe
final act,
him at his best
scene
in the saga.
Yeah,
or at least some of it. Yeah. So
as Vader, yeah.
So
yeah.
a scene that I really like is when Han's about to go in the carbonite chamber, and then Chewie starts flipping out and just like throwing
Oh yeah,
stormtroopers off
yeah.
because that's his boy. They're gonna mess with his
He
boy.
starts going
He doesn't
crazy.
know, and then Han, I as much as I kind of don't like it felt like in this movie he was kind of too obnoxious, like a little more so than in A New Hope. I kind of liked it, like he finally like gets humbled, by the events of this movie, and then like because I feel like the old Han would have, like tried to plan an escape with Chewie, and fight their way out of there, but then he's like,
Yeah,
"No, Chewie, this isn't gonna help me out. Stop, stand down, And then Leia's like, "I love you," and then Han says, "I know," which I I think you probably know, but originally George wrote for Harrison Ford to say "I love you too," and
yeah, and
then he was
yeah,
like,
yeah, and he changed it.
Han wouldn't say that, So I think that's a good. It's cool that some of the actors weren't afraid to tell George that his ideas were bad.
One of the best parts about watching the documentary Empire Dreams is it shows them to actually talking about this stuff behind the scenes, and they had a lot of input. I mean, George wanted things very specific, obviously, but they had a lot of fun with it.
Yeah. So then
So
he's frozen. Everything's kind of hopeless. And then Lando brings Leia to escape on one of his ships, and then they rescue Luke, who's like hanging by a thing, and like he calls out to Leia, and then like Leia kind of responds like she's like Luke, so it kind of makes you wonder like did Leia feel him reaching out to her in the Force? Because like there's no other way that she would have known where he was. That's a cool little foreshadowing to maybe her being at the very least sensitive to the Force. Probably not a Skywalker at this point, but
what's cool about it is it doesn't mean that she is gonna be a Jedi or Force
yeah,
user, but that Luke can use the Force as almost like a um what do you want to call it? What do they call it in the sequels?
Skype.
Like yeah, the Force Skype,
Yeah,
that was the whole joke, but they obviously take it to the extreme in the sequels, but that was sort of what he was doing here, and it was actually a callback to this. Uh, so maybe it wasn't her just sensing him, but maybe it was him trying to reach out to her. But it,
yeah.
we come to find out she is Force. She uses the Force. So
And then they
you know,
kiss again when Luke's laying on that bed thing, and it's like, bro,
it's
you just lost Han. You might never see him again. What is your deal? Like, who wrote you between then and now? Like, what happened? I don't know. It's just, and it would be bad enough if they didn't end up being related, but then that in the next movie, it's just bad. It's just bad. Like, it's some of the worst retconning I've ever seen. Just flat out.
you're not wrong. That's why this movie is like one of my least favorites because in the grand scheme of things, you can almost take it out. But that's fine in the grand scheme of things. If you're looking at it as an individual movie, I could see why it would be one of
Yeah, I
your
mean,
favorites.
it
You know what I
doesn't.
mean? To anybody.
Yeah, like the ending, it's like a cliffhanger, and I'm sure people in the theaters back in 1985 were pissed. Like, wait, now I gotta wait 3 more years, and like, I don't know. I kind of almost wonder like what the purpose of it all was. Like, it's kind of. I mean, I think from what I heard originally when this movie came out, some people didn't really like it because of how different it was.
I'm trying to think.
So like I feel
I don't
like
know.
like it's almost like The Last Jedi. Like people think The Last Jedi was the first time something like that happened, but
Yeah,
this movie was kind of
people really just don't understand Star Wars like at all.
yeah. So it ends with them about to rescue Han, Luke and Leia. all snugging up to each other, kill me. Looking out the window
Like,
at the big galaxy.
imagine if 6 was never made, like, and they didn't retcon, you know what I'm saying? As an
Yeah.
individual movie, it's not bad at all. It's very good actually. In the grand scheme of things, like, I get it. I get the reveal. People were like, "Oh, the reveal, it's amazing." I'm like, come on. A reveal like that doesn't just make it automatically the best movie ever.
But
So,
the
I don't know.
reveal of
I'm more biased of
Vader.
him being his father. Yeah.
I mean, that was a good subversion of,
Yes.
standard cliches. I feel like that should have been the only twist. But I mean, we'll talk about that when we
Yeah.
talk
Yeah.
about Return of the Jedi, because I got some thoughts, but
So, final thoughts on the movie. What do you want to
uh,
say?
I think it's a great movie. It does.
Agreed. It
I
is great.
don't necessarily think it's like a masterpiece like some people do, because it kind of um I mean, I feel like that's more like, if I look at it as just a sequel, like we just have a New Hope and Empire. I feel like it was a really creative next chapter. Did a lot of great things, improved on a lot of stuff, but unfortunately we have all three movies, so I look at it as the middle part of this trilogy, and then I look at the next movie, and it's really messy in some ways, with how it leads into that. But I mean, it's
Agreed.
still a great movie. I think it has some of the best stuff in Star Wars. I don't know necessarily where I'd rank it. Probably top 5, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it is a top 5 movie. But just when it comes to me personally, like, my very biased rankings, it's at the bottom of the original 6, at least, because I like to think of things in complete stories, and the original 6 together. I think this one is one that isn't essential to the main story in terms of a movie. It's a great movie. It's a great sequel. Obviously, I have a lot of fun watching it nowadays. Growing up, I didn't like watching it, going through my, you know, watch list,
Oh.
4, 5, 6. It wasn't my favorite to watch. I think it is missing a fun element to it. And, like, nowadays we're watching it, we're talking about the seriousness of it, the meaning, deep meanings behind certain things. But as a kid, it's like, where's the fun at?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yoda's cool, I guess, but then everyone hates the Ewoks. But Yoda was cool. So I don't know. It's just a weird movie. Um, Looking back at it, and I could definitely see why it's people's favorite. So I don't know. To each their own.
Yeah.
I just made everybody absolutely hate me after this
Well,
episode, but
people are gonna hate me in
it's
the
whatever.
next one, so it all comes full circle.
We're gonna completely swap views next episode.
Yeah.
That's fine. So it was a lot of fun doing this. Let's end it real quick with a movie or game recommendation, and I'll go first because I already mentioned Star Trek: Strange New Worlds. If you want to cry, if you want to feel something deep inside, Star Trek: Strange New Worlds. That's it. End my rant.
Okay, what happened to my lighting? There it is. What That was weird. My game recommendation is one that I'm playing on my Vita that I got about a year ago. It was like modded, and it has a memory card of every PS Vita game. There are some that I can't download, but I don't have to buy Vita games. And um
Legend.
yesterday on my lunch break, I started playing Bastion by Supergiant Games.
Yes, sir.
Dude, this game is off the hook.
Rocks.
It's not that long.
Yeah.
Generally, their games are pretty short, really streamlined. The art style is great. The backgrounds are great. The amount of work that must have went into making this game look like it does. And dude, the environmental storytelling already top notch. Like, there's a moment that I don't want to spoil. You find it out fairly quickly, because the general premise of the game is that you're a kid in this like town or whatever. It's like a sci-fi story, and like there's some calamity event And then so
I have it on
you
Switch.
have to
I need to play
go
it though.
to this place called the Bastion, which is like kind of a hub area where everybody was supposed to go in the event of, you know, a
So
extinction
cool
level event or whatever. And
yeah,
there's something that the narrator says relating to somebody. I'm not gonna. I might have already spoiled it, but you know, it's like 5 minutes into the game, and it made my jaw drop. And you know, like there are a few games.
I have it on Switch. I just
There are
need
a
to
few
play
games that have hooked me this quickly. You know, the combat's fun. You know, it's one of those games you can replay and get different skills, or you know, upgrade different weapons and stuff. So I'm really impressed with this game, and I can't wait to play more of it.
Solid choice. We love Supermassive. All right. Well, that is episode 26, Empire Strikes Back retrospective.
Yeah.
It was a lot of fun. Thanks for coming on.
Always
and next episode will be a lot of fun. Who knows when it'll be? Because we just do random stuff now. There's so much happening.
We're going to be ranking our favorite Pop-Tarts. Spoilers.
Dude, cherry, top 3.
I don't know if I've ever had cherry. The s'mores was always my jam.
Exactly.
S'mores.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
All right. If you got this far, tell us your favorite Pop-Tart in the comments or whatever. I'll leave a poll on Spotify. If you're listening on Spotify, there's going to be a Pop-Tart poll.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. All right. See you later.
Peace.